Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Business Incorporated, coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwagu. On the show today, the International Monetary Fund sees a more favorable outlook for the global economy this year and next. The West African Economic and Monetary Union rules out devaluation for the CFA franc. Shell admits for the first time it dealt with Nigeria's former Minister of Petroleum, Mr. Dan Etete, when negotiating access to a vast oil field in Nigeria, OPL 245. Let's get started, and we're beginning with the markets, and starting off here in Africa. Egypt's stock markets seem to have moved on after the deadly church attack that saw dozens injured and many killed. At intraday, the EGX 30 index was trading high by 1.27%, outperforming its peers. The JSE was also up by 0.70%. However, here in Nigeria, the NSE All-Share Index was down 0.26% midday. And in the meantime, Nairobi Stock Exchange closed up 0.26% on Monday. In the Middle East, markets moved sideways as investors choose to stay away from risky assets in light of the uncertain geopolitical climate, and as they await first quarter results. At intraday, all the markets were in the red. Shares in Abu Dhabi National Energy dropped on profit taking, pulling down the index lower. Abu Dhabi's index edged down 0.19% with the main drag coming from a 3.3% drop in shares of Abu Dhabi National Energy. Dubai's index was down 0.04%. In Saudi Arabia, the stock index was flat at 0.02%. The largest listed stock petrochemical producer, Saudi Basic Industries, rose 0.5%. Qatar's index was down 0.7% as three-quarters of the trading shares declined. Medicare Group was the worst performer, down 1.6%. In Europe, increased geopolitical risks in the Middle East and Korean Peninsula have added to existing uncertainty over the upcoming French election. Let's get the market update from my colleague at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, Conrad Busen. Good afternoon, Conrad. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Now, what's the market frenzy all about over France's upcoming election?
Well, Jimmy, everyone wants reforms to be continued in France. That's what I can tell you, and that's why everyone, at least here in the financial world, is so fond of Emmanuel Macron, the candidate who does not belong to a party, one of the traditional parties. He created his own movement, which is called En Marche. Let's go, you could translate this. What people would not like, or most people here would not like to see, is a win of, the right-wing extremist Marine Le Pen. She promises to have France return to the French franc, which would mean, of course, that, lots of open questions about the European Union. And that's not a scenario likely to really please the markets. It would likely cause turbulences on the markets.
Well, Conrad, looking behind you there, we can see the DAX staying flat there midday as we speak now. But let's look at some of the economic data that came in today. Perhaps that's what is driving the index we're seeing behind you. The Eurozone latest industrial output falling unexpectedly, while Germany's March economic sentiment coming in at highest since 2015. How are these set of data impacting trading actions, and what is the outlook by listed companies?
I think the most important point you mentioned already, that's that DAX currently, it's not very far away, only about 200 points away from its all-time high. It's reached in spring 2015, and of course now, during this pre-Easter trading, many people here, traders, hope that the DAX will manage to reach that record high. It would be on a record high, of course, if we didn't have the banking shares, which lost so much in 2016. That still they're very much down, so that they still drag the DAX downwards. The German MDAX, the mid-cap index, is on an all-time high. So we have a lot of demand here in Europe for shares in Frankfurt as well.
Now, luxury goods stocks are red hot today on Louis Vuitton earnings Are you watching the LVMH stock, Conrad?
Yes, I've been checking out the share price of Louis Vuitton Moet NSC. That's, you know, the long name of the company LVMH. The share price today is slightly higher, and of course we have a retail week this week with many retail companies coming out with their reports. Not all of them as, you know, encouraging as the ones from the luxury sector like LVMH. Tesco, for example, in the UK has a lot of problems with the German competitors Aldi or Aldi and Lidl, which are a strong competition for the Tesco markets in the UK. And have you heard that they had problems getting enough lettuce into the UK because of the decline of the British pound? They had problems delivering enough lettuce in the UK so that people who went to a supermarket in the UK were not allowed to leave the supermarket with more than 2 pieces of lettuce each. And now after this is over, prices are on the increase. You know, prices in the UK increased by a bit more than 2%, 2.3% that was. That's the same amount as in February. That's quite high inflation.
Well, Conrad, I guess you're also watching the bags, perfumes, and other items on the shelf there. Well, thank you for your time, Conrad. Conrad Busen, DW Channels TV correspondent, reporting there from Frankfurt Stock Exchange. We move on now to the U.S., where the stock index futures pointed to a marginally lower open today as Secretary of State Rex Tillerson arrives in Moscow amid tensions over Syria. On the data front, the NFIB Small Business Optimism Index slipped to 104.7 in March from 105.3 in February. The JOLTS, that's job openings and labor turnover data, are also due at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. On the earnings front, Bank of Ozarks is scheduled to report before the bell, the first of several banks to report this week.